Rose the coffee shop promise, full romantic story, 3,000 words. It was a gray afternoon in the city when the rain began to fall, not in heavy storms but in soft drops that coated the sidewalks with silver. The air carried the smell of wet earth and fresh beginnings. Emma hurried along Maple Street, clutching her coat around her. She didn't plan to stop, but the little coffee shop on the corner, with its glowing windows and warm golden light, pulled her in. The bell over the door chimed as she entered. Inside, the world felt softer, the hum of quiet conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, the rich scent of roasted coffee beans. She shook off her umbrella, brushed damp strands of hair from her face, and sighed. All she wanted was a cup of warmth and a quiet place to disappear for a while. But fate, as always, had other plans. Across the room, someone lifted his eyes from a book. His fingers froze on the page, his breath caught. For a heartbeat, he wondered if his mind was playing tricks. Yet there she was, Emma. Daniel hadn't seen her in nearly 7 years. She looked older, yes, but in a way that only deepened her beauty. Her posture carried a quiet strength, her eyes still the same deep shade of hazel that had haunted him long after college. He remembered those eyes, how they had once made him forget entire lectures, how they could look at him as though she saw through all his defenses. Emma blinked, her lips parting slightly. Recognition lit up her face, followed quickly by a storm of emotions. Surprise. Nostalgia. And something else, something she wasn't ready to name. Emma? Daniel's voice carried across the coffee shop, unsure yet filled with a warmth he couldn't hide. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. Daniel. Her voice was a whisper, but it hit him like thunder. He stood, almost knocking over his chair in his haste. She didn't back away. Slowly, carefully, he walked toward her, as though afraid she might vanish if he moved too fast. You're here, he said. Emma laughed softly, shaking her head. Well, it's a coffee shop. People come here all the time. The playful edge in her tone tugged at something deep inside him. She was still the same Emma, gentle, witty, with that sparkle in her voice. May I? He asked, gesturing toward her table. She nodded, her fingers nervously brushing the rim of her cup. Of course. They sat. For a moment, silence hovered between them, not uncomfortable but heavy with unspoken words. The world outside blurred with rain, but inside, time slowed. So, Daniel began, 7 years. 7 years, Emma echoed, a small smile tugging at her lips. Where did you go, Emma? You just disappeared. Her smile faded. She looked down at her coffee, watching the steam curl upward like secrets escaping. Life happened. Choices, mistakes. And you? I stayed here. Built a career, got busy. But I always wondered, his voice grew softer. I always wondered about you. Emma's chest tightened. She had promised herself she wouldn't fall back into old feelings, but Daniel's gaze was pulling her in, just like it used to. They had met in their sophomore year, both late to a philosophy lecture. She had rushed into the hall, arms full of books, and nearly crashed into him. Papers scattered everywhere. Sorry, she had exclaimed, dropping to her knees to gather them. No, my fault, he had said, kneeling too. Their hands brushed over the same notebook, and when their eyes met, something shifted. From that day on, Daniel found excuses to sit near her, to ask her opinions, to share notes. Emma, despite her guarded heart, found herself laughing more when he was around. He made the world lighter. There were long study nights, walks across campus, and moments of silence that felt fuller than any conversation. They never officially dated, life was complicated, and Emma carried responsibilities she rarely spoke of. But everyone who saw them together knew they were more than just friends. Until the day Emma left without a goodbye. You didn't even tell me, Daniel said now, his voice gentle but wounded. One day you were there, and the next, gone. Emma swallowed hard. I thought it would be easier that way. For who? His words cut, but his eyes softened almost instantly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. No, you're right, she whispered. It was selfish. I thought I was protecting you. My life was a mess back then, Daniel. My family, my choices. I didn't want to drag you into it. Daniel leaned forward, his hand almost reaching hers but stopping short. You could have trusted me. I know, she breathed. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. But I was scared. Silence stretched between them again, broken only by the sound of rain against the window. Then Daniel smiled faintly. Well, you're here now. Emma looked up, meeting his gaze. Yes. I'm here. And just like that, the years melted away. What was meant to be a quick coffee stretched into hours. They spoke about everything, careers, travels, the people they had become. Daniel told her about his work as an architect, how he designed buildings that tried to capture both strength and beauty. Emma shared her journey as a writer, how words had become her refuge, her way of making sense of the world. They laughed about silly college memories, teased each other about old habits, and sometimes fell into quiet moments where their eyes spoke louder than words. The rain outside turned heavier, but inside, their hearts grew lighter. Do you remember that night at the library? Emma asked suddenly. Daniel chuckled. The one where we got locked in? Yes, she said, laughing. We were supposed to be studying, but we ended up talking about dreams instead. And you told me you wanted to travel the world, Daniel recalled. Did you? Emma smiled softly. A little. Not everywhere. But enough to know the world is both bigger and smaller than I imagined. Daniel looked at her thoughtfully. You always had a way of seeing things differently. And you always had a way of making me feel safe. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Her cheeks flushed, but Daniel's expression softened into something she remembered all too well. As the clock neared closing time, the coffee shop grew quieter. Only a few tables remained occupied. Emma glanced at her watch, reluctant to leave yet knowing she should. Daniel noticed. His heart pounded. He had let her slip away once, he couldn't let it happen again. Emma, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Let's not lose years again. She looked at him, surprised. Promise me, he continued, leaning closer, his hand gently finding hers at last. No more vanishing. No more silence. Whatever happens, we face it. Together. Her eyes shimmered. For a moment, fear flickered, fear of opening old wounds, fear of hoping again. But then, something stronger rose within her. The memory of what it felt like to belong, to be seen, to be loved without words. She smiled through her tears and tightened her fingers around his. I promise. And in that promise, a new story began. The little coffee shop on Maple Street became their place. Every week, no matter how busy life grew, they met there, sometimes for hours, sometimes just long enough to hold hands across the table and remind each other that they kept their promise. The rain came and went, seasons changed, but one thing remained, love, rediscovered, fragile yet strong, a flame that refused to die. And as Emma often wrote in her notebook, sometimes love doesn't need fireworks. Sometimes all it needs is a rainy day, a coffee shop, and a second chance.